There we go.
Okie
Cool.
dokie. So we're back after a short break with Brian Harris, and we were talking about you working with Tim Paxton on the
Yes.
comic scene.
Yeah. Yes, yes. We had just released the first issue of our comic book, Dead Hatton. Um, and we had then released the reprint of Clive Barker's Lost Souls magazine, which was the zine that he would release to his fan club members.
Hmm.
And so we were restoring that, and I had a passion for The Blind Dead. I love The Blind Dead. They're so iconic looking.
Yes.
These hooded, bearded zombies, and so I wanted to do something related to that. And so I started reaching out to some of the people I know. Two of them were Tim Paxton and David Zuzello. Another David Zuzello is another huge influence.
Yes.
And he can be found on SoundClick. Is it SoundClick? What is that website with the music now? I don't even know anymore.
SoundCloud, it might be.
SoundCloud. Yes, and he is Black Market Brains. He does music under that
But
label.
if I'm correct, David,
Mhm.
he did Temple of the Sherlock?
He did.
He did. I was.
Yes. Yep. And so I got them together and I was like, let's do this. Like let's let's see if we can put together some kind of a project. We started working and we had started working on a Blind Dead project. We had started working, which was going to be a graphic novel, and we started on a Paul Nashi
Oh yeah.
project. The Paul Nashi project fell through, which happens all the time. But we did get our Blind Dead first zine issue together, and we needed someone to do the printing for us because at that point, again, Comic Express was really the only comic printing company, and we wanted more of a zine. So. Sure enough, we were introduced to Tim. Tim did a great job for us. And that was that. That was my first introduction to Tim Paxton. So years later, I was able to kind of reconnect with Tim and work with him, which was it was a huge honor. Um, and so that Blind Dead issue was small, and we were
Mhm.
just like, it'd be really cool if we just kind of kept that whole zine style. The zines were small at the time, most of them, a lot of them, not all of them. And so Tim and I were like, yeah, let's do it. So the first issue, I believe, of Wang's Zero went through Comic Express so we could see how it looked and whatever. And we were like, yes, let's do it. So we went through, and then, of course, Amazon started doing their print on demand, and it was just a much better deal. It was so much cheaper. And so we did it. And after the first issue, or after issue zero, which is a small one, we had so much feedback. People were like, why are you not doing this as a real magazine? Like you guys could do so much more. And so we did the first issue as a full size. We had so much more information to go into it, and the smaller it is, the more info you have going on, the more it's going to cost. It just gets bigger and
Yes.
bigger, and yeah. So we went big, and then we started getting the complaints in. Like they're like, "What are you doing?" Like they're everyone's OCD was off the chart. Like we want a
Yes,
big one. Like
we're talking about it, so let's just to see that
yeah,
we went from the issue zero to this
yes,
kind of stuff, you know?
yeah,
That was
yeah.
issue
Yeah,
number 10, number 10.
yeah, yeah. They stopped being magazines by around that point.
Yeah. I can tell you where we mentioned issue zero, and I will stop a bit at
Yeah,
that because when I got it, and there is an article by Tim Paxton, and it's
yes,
called "Roll Them Bones," or "How I Spent a week's grocery money on Indian monster movies and didn't live to regret it." And believe me or not, I read that article. I'm like, oh my goodness.
yeah,
Like, what the
yeah.
hell is that?
Right.
Obviously nobody heard about that movie, in my,
Oh no.
around nobody that.
Yeah,
Like, and
yeah.
like, as nobody like you, me, or Tim, we don't speak
Sure.
Hindi or whatever the languages in India is speaking. that they
Sure.
speak with, and I'm like, but I still want to watch it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
absolutely.
after that, when the new Wang's shop
Yeah,
went, and obviously later on Monster,
right.
that feature by Tim, the Indian movies, they were like my probably most favorite,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
because they were like, obviously we know how Tim writes,
Sure,
deep
sure.
dives, to the point, and his
Yeah.
his knowledge is encyclopedic. And I'm not,
Yes, absolutely.
and to be honest,
Encyclopedic. Yeah.
and for the record, I'm not kissing ass now.
Yeah.
Because that's just the
No,
cold
no, it's
hard
it's it's
truth.
it's deserved. Tim is, yeah.
Yes,
It's
obviously.
well deserved.
And especially obviously when you got the new issue like Wang Shop,
Yeah.
you don't know what you're getting, first of all,
Sure. Right,
because
right, yeah.
you are responsible, for me getting into the grindhouse cinema uh,
Fantastic.
with your review of this grindhouse experience. I think was like
Yeah.
20 movies.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
believe me or not, I did the volume two. I already bought that, but
Mhm.
I couldn't get the volume one because the purple red ones, because
Yeah, yeah, they're
it was
so
quite
hard to get
quite
now. Yeah.
pricey. And
Yes.
plus, you're the baddie, the bad guy who introduced me to the Mill Creek Entertainment.
I
And
love Mill Creek.
who doesn't?
Yeah.
Who doesn't? But the thing
Yeah.
is, because I was too late to the game,
Sure.
and I missed on that 100 martial arts movie, you know,
Yes, yes.
because they stopped doing that. They went by 50 after that,
Yeah.
obviously. So
Yeah.
you can still get them technically, but you would like to get like 100, in this box.
Yeah.
That's what we aiming for.
Right. Right. Yeah, that was my deep dive. Like most, well, like I wouldn't say a most again, a large amount of kids who grew up in semi or rural or semi-rural areas had access to drive-in theaters. It's a culture here.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a town that had an outdoor theater. So I would definitely catch films that children probably shouldn't. Um, and then that kind of went in, that kind of went in, and then it led to this place where I was just looking for the grimiest stuff. I mean, stuff that you're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like watching a movie about a hitman with no legs.
Oh yeah.
Like this, like the Sinful Dwarf, or just weird, wonderful.
But the thing is, I don't know if you will agree with me or not. When you're
Mhm.
starting like doing the deep dives in that like forbidden whatever
Yeah.
cinema or previously unknown, you went
Yeah.
for the extreme stuff
Yes.
up to the point that
Always.
you realize that it's completely like what the hell, But it's not really point. And for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
nowadays I don't even watch that much of a horror, and I started with horror movies,
Yes.
like
Same here.
like most of us, I would say.
Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
And nowadays I'm more like obviously Asian cinema and
That's
stuff
same with
like
me.
that. But
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
the point was like when you got this torture porn, for example, like Hostel, and grotesque, shall we say? Okay,
Grotesque is a great example. Yes.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm like, why the hell am I watching that? Because I
Yes.
couldn't actually justify me spending time watching stuff like that, or I don't know. What was that? What was that? This Japanese, extreme, stuff like I don't know, guinea pig, obviously, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I watched that, and to be honest, I watched
Yeah.
the first one, and I'm like, what's so great about the movie? I
Yeah.
couldn't get it.
Right.
I was
Right.
I was bored to tears first
Yeah.
because it's just like,
Yeah.
it's bad.
Yeah.
I think two of the next one. I think was the Android of Notre Dame or whatever it was.
The guinea pig films. Yes.
Yeah, I got
Hmm.
like two more of them, and then I never watched them because I didn't feel the urge.
Yeah. The thing about horror, when you're a kid, you start out in this sort of place where you get the average horror, and it's the same horror that all other kids get to watch and everyone watches. And then you want more. You just want that jolt. You want more excitement. You want more blood, more boobs, more
And
everything. And you're
you want
like,
to be the guy who's talking about them.
yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. And you want to be the guy who can honestly say, I made it through that. Because there's a lot of people that still cannot watch Faces of Death, even though we know that a large majority of the material in Faces of Death was faked.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But
Yeah, and they
how many people went through all Serbian
oh,
film?
I did.
I did.
I own it.
I do it. I do as well. And to be honest, I like it for what it was.
It is an incredibly well-made movie.
Exactly.
You can,
That's what I meant.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
It's shocking beyond belief, obviously,
Oh,
and it's just not the movie you would play on a date.
it is not. I was one of the lucky people who got my hands on the uncut Swedish release before it hit America, and I would have to say, and there's probably some people out there that disagree with me because they think they've found something even worse, but by far, hands down, in my opinion, that was amongst the worst extreme films I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I would agree
Um,
with that. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not saying, again, I'm not shooing anyone away from it. Go see it if you feel you need to, but it's not going to leave you.
But the thing is, what I would point out is not that it was like the grossest, because
No,
you can get the
no.
August Underground or
Oh,
whatever. But the thing
sure,
is,
yeah.
because it was well made,
It was so well
it
made.
was so well
Yes.
made. It was a proper professional
Yes.
movie, to the
Yes.
point. Then you see like, oh, I'm gonna watch that. It's nice.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were scenes which I'm like, because now I can actually appreciate the camera work, or the
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Back in like
Absolutely.
20 years ago, I was like, oh, play it again, and whatever.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's a bit different. Obviously, it's shocking.
Yeah.
But
Well, with so many people also making cinema part of their identity, when they start identifying it as them, these tend to be the kind of people then who polarize. And so you get that split where like half of them are like, it's the best movie ever, and you're pussies if you don't like it. And then you get
oh
the
yeah,
other side that are like, that's the worst movie ever. If you like it, you're a pedo. And well, that's a shame. First of all, don't make cinema your identity so much so that you polarize and it's us against them,
yes,
right? It should never be us against them. If you don't like a movie, state so, state that intelligently and move on. But with Serbian film, people have not moved on. They still go on and harp on it, and people will attack you. It's the worst movie ever made. It's the best movie ever made. I got tired of it. By
yes.
Serbian film, I was done with extreme cinema. I had gotten to that point where I just wanted to be entertained. I don't want to be shocked anymore.
To be honest with me, and you might agree with that.
Mhm.
Uh, I kind of stopped watching extreme like horror movies, like, but I mean like extreme stuff,
Yeah.
where because when you got a family and you got kids,
Yes.
it
Exactly.
it hits you hard.
Yes, it does. Hmm.
Just the movie, to make a point is like Megan is missing.
Oh, yeah, right. Yep.
Almost like
Harsh.
I couldn't finish that movie, to be honest,
Right. Right.
because
Yeah. Harsh.
it hits hard.
Yes.
Obviously, when you're like 17, and you're saying like I live in the basement, smoking, I don't know, whatever, and drinking, I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
I got a little girl here, and I'm like, holy shit. And obviously, those people are among us like that, So there's like,
Yes.
no, I don't really, the world is sorry for the word. World is fucked up already enough. I don't need to be
Absolutely.
reminded
Right.
of that. So
Right.
and I would agree with you, to be entertained by the like movie business, movie
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you are one of those people that enjoy extreme cinema, right? There, no judgment. I mean, if that's how you get entertained, cool.
Yeah, of course there is
Um,
no.
yeah, I'm not one of those people, who see everyone as like psychos if you love it. Like, no, I'm pretty cool with that. You enjoy what you enjoy. But for me, I wanted to, because outside of being a horror fan and an exploitation fan, I am a rabid sci-fi fan. I'm a genre fan. I grew up in literally the creation and the height of pop cinema or pop culture.
Yeah.
So for me, I love Star Trek. I love Star Wars. I want to see Battlestar Galactica. I love fantasy films. I mean, who couldn't watch the Never-Ending Story a million times? Right. I mean,
Do you wanna know something? Now I'm quoting Alicia Edwards from TNA Impact. Do you wanna know something? Yeah, but it was unplanned. Back in the day, we're talking 1986, I guess, because that was the
Mhm.
time when Neverending Story, the first one, hit the theaters in Czechoslovakia. That was
Sure, sure.
obviously we got some movies which got through the Iron Curtain,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously the Neverending Story was one of
yeah.
them.
Oh,
And I was so taken by this.
yes,
I was 9 years
yes.
old,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, I sit down, I took a blank notebook, and I r- write down the whole movie.
Awesome.
And to be honest, I did a tie-in, or basically
Yeah.
a movie novelization
Right. Okay.
without even knowing that something
Sure.
like that actually is a thing.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yep.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I was so. That was it's still one of my go-to and one of most favorable movies of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't. I had found that by the time I had really gotten into the middle of Wang's Chop, I could not contain my passion for all genre stuff. I'm a big martial arts movie fan. Now, I'm not really big into the modern stuff. I like Shaw Brothers Kung Fu,
Yeah.
Golden Harvest, stuff like that. I grew up on Samurai Sunday and stuff like that. So I started looking for things that pleased me. I wanted things that made me feel good. And I know that sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous. I'm sorry to say that, but I wanted things that made me feel. Um, I have. Let me just state, I have a very severe PTSD.
Mm.
I was in the mid '90s. I was shot twice, so very, very much PTSD. And so horror and exploitation for me was sort of a salve and a bandage. I would watch horror and exploitation, and it kind of soothed the PTSD.
Yep.
Um, but there came a certain point where it wasn't. I didn't need the catharsis any longer.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to be happy, or at least I wanted to be entertained. Back to the entertainment again. Um, and so I had been watching less horror, but on the other hand, I picked up Asian horror, Asian cinema. I love Asian horror. I absolutely love it.
Guilty.
Um, yeah, it's just it's and from an American standpoint, from folks in the U.S., we don't know anything. Well, they don't know anything about Asian culture. And so when I first got into it, I did not know what I was watching, and I wasn't super pleased with it. I was like, "What is this?" I remember watching The Ring for the first time. It had to have been 2000. It had to have been somewhere in there. And I was just like, "This is garbage." Because-
To mentioning the Ring,
yeah,
I have to say I got all of them, on the
yeah,
DVDs anyway. But I first watched the American remake, which,
yes,
to be honest,
okay,
I still like. I like
sure.
the first
It's
one.
a
The second,
decent
the
movie.
second
Yeah,
one was a little bit meh, but the first
right.
one was very, very, very good, very well
Yes,
done.
yes,
And then I tried to watch the original Ring,
right.
the Japanese one, and
Yeah.
I couldn't go through, to be honest. It was like I was expecting something in the lines of like, okay, if is that the remake, is that is gonna be
Right.
similar, or
Right.
taking like a page of this book, and it was
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but I need to
Yeah.
go and watch it because it's just like this
Yeah.
doing your standard education in Japanese cinema, I would say.
Yes, yes. And once you get past once you watch the first ring, then you're on to ring 0,
Yep.
birthday. You're on to ring 2, you're on to ring 3. Oh, wait. No, you're on to spiral. And then you're
And then
on
you get the
to
Ring virus
yeah, and then it just goes and now you're on ring virus in Korea
in
and
Korean. Yeah, exactly.
and I do even recall tracking down the very first Ring movie before Ring came out. There was a made-for-TV Ring called Ring Panzaban that is just it was an early Ring. There was even some nudity in it, which was surprising. Um, I wouldn't say it was any better than the first one. But later on down the line, of course, I gave Asian cinema a shot again, and Dark Water Dark Water scared the shit out of me. Like and Our Point is a Korean film called Our Point. I was
Yep.
like, damn, like the creep factor was through the roof. I was like, finally, I've gotten back to that feeling of being excited about horror again, and it just kind of stuck. It just
I
yeah,
would say that what Asians do best is batshit crazy
yes,
horror,
yes,
and I would say obviously action cinema.
oh
That's
yeah,
and plus the mix all in between. Obviously, the comedy is it's hit and miss, but
sure, sure.
what I really like is that batshit crazy stuff because the mixture of what can you do, you can get
Yeah,
all the genres in one film, and
yes,
it
hmm
mostly works. I'm
right, right,
like whoa,
yeah,
we mentioned Wang Wang,
yeah,
and you watch movies like the Wild Wild West, Wild West, yeah, Wang,
right,
and obviously Agent 001 and a half, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and stuff like that. I couldn't believe my eyes, to be honest.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
holy crap! And then what I'm watching, but obviously I'm gonna watch it just because.
Sure.
Still,
Absolutely. Yeah.
still, obviously from where I'm coming from is like we already mentioned that. I'm like,
Yeah.
have you seen that movie? You wouldn't believe that. And trust me, 2014, as I mentioned, I got into this like movie collecting and
Yeah.
reading
Yeah.
about it. Because
Right.
back in the day, I was in the underground like music scene. We
Oh yeah.
publish a music fanzine and stuff like that, but never
Yep.
been into like movies like
Right.
that.
Right.
And suddenly I'm reading about, uh, you know, Jesus Franco.
Yeah.
I don't know the Mexican cinema. Pete Toms and Mondo Macabro. And you're going through that and you're learning, and it's like, wait,
Yep.
there's a whole world
World.
of the movies you want to
Mhm.
watch, and
Yeah.
especially I went back. Still, obviously, it's this OCD talking. You need to go through to the very beginning of the stuff. So you
I
go
think
into
so.
the silent
Sure.
cinema,
Right.
and
Yep.
then the 30th,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Mhm.
the classic horror, Universal horror.
Yeah. Universal. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going from that, and you in the world of Depeche Mode songs, I can't get enough. So I'm still watching, and obviously not as much as I would do, but
Sure.
but
Yeah.
not to forget, because we can brag and talk stuff uh,
Sure.
for the rest of the evening or the day for you. But what I need to mention, because
Mm-hmm.
we already mentioned and we hit after there was some hiatus, I would say, with the Wang's shop,
Hmm.
and team come up with Monster.
Monster. Yes.
And I think you did provide some articles there as well, innit?
On and off. Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, on occasion. Not much. I wanted Tim to do Monster Tim's way. And
Yes.
I didn't want a ton of spillover because a lot of people who did Wang's Chop wanted to be involved with Monster naturally. And that just wasn't in the cards for everybody.
Yes.
Um, uh, and even Tim had sort of stated up front that he wanted Monster to sort of be the scholarly monster movie magazine, whereas Wang's Chop, I'm not denigrating my or Tony's work at all, but Wang's Chop was supposed to be a garbage can. You
Well,
know, it was
actually,
supposed to be this.
I would say it's like a pop culture versus the
Yes.
serious academic stuff,
Yeah.
sort of,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, like a grocery store filled with some oddities that you could
Yes.
just, wherever you whatever you wanted to pick from. And so Monster did quite well. Monster did quite well.
Oh, I'm not surprised, to be honest,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
and as with the Wank Shop, like this is the first one, first
Yeah.
issue, and I think there was the last one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they got bigger and bigger along the way.
and it was like just to read that, it's
Yeah.
like a week or so just to
Yep.
get through, and obviously you reread. That's the value in them because you reread them.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
That is important. I mean, that is important. I have magazines, early Rue Morgue and Fangorias, and I would go back and read them. Like, of course. And so I wanted that readability, that rereadability for Wang's Chop and Monster, especially. People can go back to their collections and they can say, "Hey, I've always wanted to see that. Let me track it down."
yes.
And I think we achieved that. And let me say, Wang's Chop is still going. It has taken a while though. The pandemic really put a kink in things. And then after that, my publishing partner Tony got cancer,
Yeah.
and I'm not. Tony was not the stall. It was really just a storm of circumstances. It just
You just can't
one thing
help.
or
You
another.
just can't help themselves.
Right,
It's
right. It
still
wasn't.
happening. So
Yeah, yeah. Nothing was on hiatus because of Tony. And then yeah, and so during that time, of course, the downtime is when you really start to worry because you're like, well, what the hell are we going to do? Um, I mean, we can keep doing this or we can figure something else. You have to pivot. And
yeah,
so we decided to pivot into books, which was, it was,
I got here one. I got one.
oh, do you? Real depravities. I mean, come on.
And to be honest,
Yeah.
I bought it, and I'm not even Klaus Kinski fan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's
Right.
fascinating actor, though
Yes.
we not gonna argue
Oh,
that.
sure. Sure, sure.
But obviously, I had to buy the book. Still
Yeah.
missing the Paul Nashi book, which I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to-
Yeah, and I believe we released color versions of Real Depravities as well. Yeah.
but they're too pricey for me, unfortunately.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the sign of the
Yeah.
times. We singing to
I know.
death and all the time. But the thing
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
all this stuff, help anybody who's like serious
Yep.
into like I want to know more. Is this nice way to learn, to
Yeah.
enjoy, and to experience, because there are some movies, and I'm sure we're gonna agree on that. There's some movies you don't even want to watch, but you like to read about them.
Yes.
There are some
Yeah.
terrible movies out there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I'm that person too. I'll read all about it, but it's not always a necessity for me to go and watch everything, So I'll just set stuff aside. Like, yeah, I'll check this out someday. It's fun to read about them though. Um,
To
and
be
that
honest,
was. Go ahead.
yeah. To be honest, nowadays, I'm spending my time, and you wouldn't believe, you wouldn't believe, with vintage adult movies. But
Okay.
I'm not like watching them.
Right.
I'm reading about them because I like the history. I'm I like the history, about the actors, like I don't know,
Yes.
John Holmes, and
Right.
all this generation. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch that because like
Yeah.
it's not that enticing at all.
Right.
I'm
Right.
a youngster in comparison, like people who grew in 70s,
Right.
and but the history of that genre is so fascinating, you know. So it's like
Yeah, it is.
in itself,
Yeah.
it's the of interest,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, I wanted what we were doing, and I think that Tony, Tim, and I accomplished that. We wanted what we were doing at Wildside. At that point, it was Wildside. It was Wildside
Yes,
Publishing, I think it was. Uh, we got a threat. I won't say from who. We got a threat from another publishing company. They accused us of stealing their name, which is ridiculous because the name was taken directly from my website.
yeah,
So we agreed to change the name. Instead of Wildside Chronos, we went with WK Publishing, WK Books, which was just easier. But we wanted that to become a primer for everyone. Like, if
yes,
you are getting into this, start from the beginning, work your way up. If you just want to find out more about Asian cinema or porn, even adult cinema, or you wanted to find out about some of the religious exploitation films out there. There's Christian exploitation
yes.
films. Um, we did it. And in the process of doing that, by the way, we weren't the first to revive the zine thing. There were other zines out there. It was still Lunch Meat, I believe. Um, I know Lunch Meat without a doubt. I know some of the zines or magazines that had started around the time were trying to sort of establish themselves as like the next Rue Morgue.
Yeah.
We weren't interested in that. We didn't want to be the next Rue Morgue or Fangoria. Um, we wanted to do the things that they would not touch, because all of those other folks, they do play it safe. I know that that's probably insulting to some of them, but they do play it safe.
And still they're only niche magazines because they do horror.
Yeah,
Fangoria did,
a lot.
Rumor,
Yeah,
obviously it
yeah,
is. So the
yeah.
exploitation genre, there's
Mm-hmm.
only there was basically only Grindhouse Purgatory, from
Yeah,
42nd
Pete's
Street period,
Grindhouse.
and
Yeah,
now, like, yeah, and Grindhouse Resurrection was a follow up of the Purgatory,
sure. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
and that was basically it. Nobody did this
No,
mixture of genres but you and Pete.
right.
And no,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, I'm not fair. Also, the Exploitation Nation, they did also this mixture of,
Exploitation Nation. Yes, 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 yes.
yeah. So they did
Yeah,
they did that mixture of genres as
yeah,
well. But I would say
yeah.
that Wang's Shop and then Grindhouse Purgatory / Resurrection
Yeah.
were the main ones.
Yes. And we tried. What we did at WK is we did not want to rehash the zine war era. There was a point that there were a lot of horror and exploitation zines, and they all were going after each other. You could open up a zine and read someone trashing another zine or another writer, people using, slurs,
Yes.
it was homosexual slurs and like, it was bad. It got really bad. And so, we all decided we're not going to engage in this. We're going to be our own thing. And I think we accomplished that. I would like to think we would.
Question is, because I
Yeah,
still don't get it, because obviously I'm not the type of guy, but
yeah.
why was that? Why they trashing each other? Is it was like
Well,
trying to seize the portion of the market, obviously, because the money
yeah.
talks, so
It is a crab barrel mentality at the indie level. Everyone at the bottom wants you to know that they are above you. Sure, we're all at the bottom, but I'm still better than you. Sure, we're none of us are making money, but if we were to make money, I'd make more than you. And
oh my goodness.
and that is a bad idea. It's just a bad idea. It's just a bad idea because it closes the door to possibilities. At some point in the future, I don't know if it's ever possible, but you might have a, Grindhouse Purgatory meets Wang's Chop issue together, combined,
Yeah.
something like that. And you can't do that And you can't have those writers come back and forth when you are trashing everyone, you know.
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And also, we weren't interested in alienating our readers either, because there's a lot of readers that loved Grindhouse Purgatory and VHS Mold and different zines like that. And we didn't want them feeling like you have to choose. Like, get it all if you can. Um, yeah, I think we did do that, and I think that moving forward, I know that Tony has taken the reins because Tony is active right now. Um, he he's the big dog. I mean, I essentially just told him like, look, um, it's not fulfilling anymore. I mean, I love it, but it's not
Yes, I
fulfilling.
understand what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And and then by the time well, it was like I said, it was a little after the pandemic. I have a good friend named Benny. Benny had a contract in China to do Chinese movies. Unfortunately, the pandemic kind of shut that down. Everything was canceled. Go home, don't come back. And so he went back to Hollywood, and he's like, "What the hell do I do now?"
Brian,
Um,
I
yeah,
will ask you for another break before we go
sure,
into
sure.
from the segment because we're running out of time with the segment,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we'll be right back because now it's getting even more interesting. So
Mhm.
for people,
Sure, no problem.
stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay.